The war with Iran now about a week old, and by just about any metric, the United States, along with Israel and now the Arab nations, are pounding the regime with nearly endless attacks. I expect this to happen until the threat is eliminated once and for all. But how long can it go on? It is going to be a bit of a problem politically, potentially. The U.S. has reportedly sunk over 30 Iranian ships as Operation Epic Fury continues, and the Israeli Defense Force launched its 15th wave of large-scale strikes targeting Iranian infrastructure in Tehran, among other places. Meanwhile, Iran continues its retaliatory attacks across the Middle East against at least 12 countries, Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. They've signaled tougher military posture and are considering possible action themselves. Join me to discuss retired Navy Intelligence Commander Paul Chabot, as well as constitutional lawyer and former JAG officer Don Brown. Don, I do want to start with you because you've been out on the campaign trail. I know it didn't end the way you had hoped, but the fact is you're talking to people. And right now, I just looked, oil is at $91 a barrel. That's up from $67 just 8 days ago. Every $10 increase in a barrel of oil is an increase of 25 to 30 cents per gallon of gasoline. That's going to impact real people. That's why I say if this war drags on, I don't know how well it plays politically. Your thoughts?
Well, of course, we're going to see some short-term fluctuation in oil prices around the world. The solution to that, though, is buy more American oil. Let's do that. Open the pipelines and open up the supplies here. But the president is taking a bold and decisive action. Things seem to be going well. The incredible footage we saw that probably LA class or Virginia class submarine taking out this Iranian warship with a Mark 48 torpedo the other day was just off the charts. It just shows the superior hand that we have militarily. And I think that by the time this conflict rolls in another month or so, we'll see oil prices stabilizing as this regime continues to collapse. I hope so anyway.
We'll see what happens there. Paul, I want to bring you into this conversation. From your position, how is the war being executed? Look, one thing Americans certainly don't want are boots on the ground, but how do you complete the mission short of that?
It's complicated because it's not just a nation state that we're targeting along with our ally Israel, as some of the other allies a little bit late to the game coming in, Britain, France. But we're also dealing with a completely another component, which is terrorism. They don't really own a country, they own an ideology, and that ideology is going to continue to go after American interests. What we got to pay attention to is the Strait of Hormuz. It's a choke point. About 20% of the world's oil goes through that area. That will impact the economy. But interestingly, that's going to impact more so China or Russia than the United States. Look, I'm here in Texas. I got 3 daughters. They all drive cars. We fill them up. Our gas is up about 75 cents a gallon. So we see it and we feel it. But we also know this is temporary. It's for the greater good. But my big concern really is about the terror networks that we are taking on and doing a great job at isolating Iran, their leadership, their tactical capabilities, their Air Force, Navy's eventually gone. But now we've also got to focus on the terror state networks, which are very active in the region, very active today as well.
Paul, let me ask you more about boots on the ground. There is a group of hardened soldiers that are willing to go into Iran. The Kurds are on the Iraqi-Iranian border. They're willing to fight. They know the regime. They know the territory. They know the circumstances they'd be facing. And they would like to be given the green light. What are your thoughts on the Kurds entering this battle from Iraq?
You know, that's a really interesting take because we know we're not going to put American boots on the ground in any significant numbers. Certainly, we've got Mossad, which is Israeli equivalent sort of to our CIA with boots on the ground, I'm sure, as well as a small contingent of others providing advocacy and looking for targets. But to see the Kurds coming in, like they've got a bone to pick. And quite honestly, I think we all do. I was in Iraq in 08, 09. Many of our American service members in Iraq were killed by Iranian-made IEDs that were killing our troops, our sailors, our soldiers across that region. So this is a new tactic to send in the Kurds. I would say if we do so, we're controlling the airspace already. But I haven't thought of that. And I'd have to think more of that to give you a solid response.
All right, fair enough, Paul. I've been seeing those headlines. That's why I'm keeping an eye on it. Let's talk about the oil routes. Don, for a moment here. The people that are paying the price the most, China and Russia.
Yeah, right.
It will, in my estimation, China already lost Venezuela from its sources of oil. And with Iran's oil now being slowed down or stopped and the shadow fleet being confiscated by the United States, those ships are not arriving in China, and they're not getting that oil at $10, $15, $20 below market rate. And they're not selling it or buying it in Chinese currency anymore. They have to go back to the petrodollar. They have to go back to the American dollar, which means that BRICS is pretty much dead from where I sit here today. This is damaging to China, and it could make Russia a vassal state because they'll be the ones that can supply China with oil. Your thoughts?
Well, sure, both Russia and China are negatively impacted. Historically, Russia has lusted for Iran because they wanted that warm water port at Andis Ababa or wherever along the Persian Gulf. They don't have a warm water port that they can get their ships out. The Russian fleet comes out of Vladivostok in the Pacific, and it freezes over there. The Chinese, for separate reasons, you point out, China is the largest consumer of oil in the world, and they need that Iranian oil. And now with the Straits of Hormuz seriously compromised, and we're controlling those straits and have decimated their navy, China's coming to its knees to a bit. And they've wanted Iran not only for oil, but they would like to have an overland route with their belt strategy, their Belt and Road strategy that Xi has tried to implement all over the world. This is significant. And if you think about it, when President Trump sent those B-2 bombers in to decimate Iran's nuclear program last summer, neither the Chinese nor the Russians even knew that we were there with the B-2s and the F-35s that were accompanying those bombers. And this is a big blow. When you got a president like Donald Trump, you stop and think. And I think if nothing else, we're not going to see any action by the Chinese against Taiwan anytime soon. So I think we got to let it play out. But I think you're right. Oil prices will stabilize.
Anyone on the globe that questioned American military superiority, just review this year. Operation Midnight Hammer, the removal of Maduro from his place of power in Venezuela, stopping that illegal cartel from running all sorts of illegal operations, drugs, oil, everything. And Paul, now that China has been cut off from this oil supply, that they've been getting at a discount, at a deep discount, because they're taking oil off the market that is not legal for most countries to take, and they wouldn't take it. That has propped up the Chinese economy as well, because if you get discount energy, well, it's better for your economy. China has a challenge here, don't they?
They've got a challenge right now. They've shut down some of their refineries. The refiners are taking the crude coming in, a lot of them Strait of Hormuz, to refine that for gasoline. And their economy right now is dependent on that. So they are hurting. This is great news for America because we don't even have to fight China. We just have to sustain what we're doing in the Middle East, continue to show our strength. And I also want to point to two other quick examples. A lot of these drones that Russia is using to attack Ukraine came from Iran or came from Iranian technology. So when you look at what we're doing in the Middle East, we're impacting the war in Ukraine and Russia right now. We're impacting potentially China looking at the US and still keeping us as a superpower. And oh, by the way, North Korea is watching this. We used to talk about, the four. And today, in the last week, you can remove essentially Iran from this equation. And now we're dealing with three that I think are quite terrified because they're seeing the reality of our military. And by the way, I retired and I've never seen our military this motivated, this on target. This president gave them a bonus of 1776. He loves them, what we're doing, what we're showcasing. And look, here's the tickler. Secretary of War and the president himself has said there is more to come.
Yeah, a lot more to come. In fact, the B-52s have taken wing now, so it's going to be endless bombing campaigns. We have complete dominance, not controlled dominance, of the skies over Iran. Let me ask you this, Don. Now that the Venezuelan situation has been addressed, and it seems to have stabilized 8-9 weeks on, if we can have similar success in Iran, that would be beneficial. But there's also a third country that's teetering as we speak, and that's Cuba. We may not even need to fire a shot in Cuba because their oil was cut off. Their electricity is out. Their supplies of energy are gone. Cuba could be coming to an end as we know it as well. Don, thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Cuba could collapse economically, much like the Soviet Union collapsed at the end of the Reagan administration, the first of the first Bush administration, because we forced them into an economic war or into a arms race that they couldn't afford. And likewise, Cuba is collapsing economically. I think they'll collapse without a shot being fired. Hope so anyway. but it's just one of those fallout
Yeah.
effects, like Paul was talking about earlier, with other nations are now taking note and capitulating in many ways because of the amazing show of the United States military and superiority here. And so I think we're on mark. I think within the next year, we're going to see a major regime change in Cuba simply by default, and I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Paul, I mentioned it off the top. The real question is duration. How long are we engaged with this war in Iran? I think that has political consequences that could be not favorable to Republicans or the president. Give me the last word here. What do you think? It's conjecture, I realize, but what does your gut tell you about how long this goes on?
Look, this is history repeating itself consistently. When there's a war, initially we all rally behind the president. Right now, about 71% of Republicans are behind the president on this war. That is great numbers for him. But we know this: as wars drag on, the numbers begin to go down. Casualties, we're not going to have boots on the ground. We've had 6 horrific losses, small number, but yet there are losses. My concern is that the left is going to try to prop up the United Nations, which we know China and Russia have spaces at a table where they're going to criticize what we do. We need to forget the UN. We need to do what's right for America and America first, and support our allies. And oh, by the way, Britain and France and the other countries should have came to the table on day one. I'm glad they're coming to the party late, but this is really the United States of America leading the free world against evil.
Yeah, and then there's Canada. They're in, they're out, they're in. Good luck up there in Canada with Carney, I'll just say that. Paul, Don, greatly appreciate you both being here today.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Really appreciate it. God bless. All right, after the break, Operation Epic Fury continuing. Many experts showing concerns over these oil prices above $91 a barrel now, but some say there's a way to counter it by unleashing even more American energy. Can we actually do that? We'll discuss that coming up on America's Voice Live.